Hi and welcome to the PipeLagger Pro Complete Kit tutorial. In the packet there is the bespoke toothless saw with protective cover and the two-way toothless saw sharpener. The PipeLagger Pro profilers, and the two stainless steel nuts and bolts for fastening the profilers. In order to separate the two profilers, just simply remove the two tie wraps. Both sets of bolts have 3 locking nuts on each. Remove those. And it's a case of now just putting all the components together. 2 rebated hexagonal heads the bolts just go down into. The first pair of locking nuts will then get put up to the very inside of the first profiler. Hand tight is sufficient, but better again as an adjustable spanner. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to do it hand tight. The second pair of locking nuts will then get put on to each bolt. The opposite profiler will then go on to the bolts, and the last remaining pair of locking nuts on the end. Now you may find when you first load PipeLagger Pro that it does catch a little bit, and that's because the clearance hose designed within the mode is so tight so the profilers align, but it does actually get better in use. So PipeLagger Pro is compatible for 9 variations: 15, 22, 28 copper, 13, 19, 25 wall thickness. The way in which you load PipeLagger Pro: the face with the hexagonal heads goes underneath. You ensure the 2 outer bolts are undone so the top comes up. You load any one of those 9 variations and let the PipeLagger Pro drop down onto the lagging by its own natural weight. That's it. That's now grabbing PipeLagger Pro. Once the curves are hugging against the contours of the lagging, you nip up the 2 outer nuts until they touch the 2 upstanding posts hand tight. You then lock the 2 inner locking nuts, and that will give PipeLagger Pro the perfect grabbing tension, which doesn't then move once it's in the profiler. When using 15mm diameter and 13mm wall thickness, the 2 inner nuts need to be fully removed. Profiler separated. And then really you only need to tighten it with 1 set of locking nuts, because as you do so, that then draws the bolt head nice and tight within the rebated face. You may want to then put the remaining 4 nuts on one or split it just to keep them safe and park them. So that is now the diameter for 15, 13, because these 2 raised edges have been designed for that reason. The fundamental part of PipeLagger Pro is to use the PipeLagger Pro kit, of which comes as a toothless saw and is provided a free sharpener. For safety reasons, the saw comes with a profiler. That obviously needs to be removed and kept safely. We always recommend to sharpen the brand new saw to put a brand new feather edge on the edge, and the way in which that is done is hold firmly down the sharpener. The saw gets pushed down firmly between the two ceramic rods and 2 3-inch strokes along the entire blade length a couple of times. You can actually feel then the metal grinding against the ceramic, and that's about the length of time you need to adopt when sharpening the saw. PipeLagger Pro has a screen print here just to assist you in terms of the maintenance of the saw. As it clearly stipulates, preparing the edge, there are crossed carbide elements for coarse sharpening. Now you'll only really need to use that side of the sharpener in the event that the saw was dropped from a height and got nastily chipped, or you've used it for other types of work to take the feather edge off. The one that you really will use mainly for pipe lagging is the ceramic rods. Now the ceramic rods is finishing the edge, and all you simply do is the rod will go down into the apex of the rods with pressure and back and forth. Should one of the rods come out or there was a fault anywhere else on the sharpener, then obviously we have a 12-month warranty on the product and a direct replacement would be sent out. So in order to load PipeLagger Pro of any one of those 9 variations, ensure the 2 outer nuts are fully wound out, turn it upside down so the 2 rebated hexagonal heads are looking downwards, load any one of those 9 variations, and the PipeLagger Pro profiler will then just drop down and sit down by its own natural weight. By doing so, it will follow the natural curvatures of the pipe lagging. Hand tighten the 2 outer locking nuts until they touch the 2 upstanding posts, and then lock the inner set, and that will then give you the perfect grabbing tension of PipeLagger Pro so it doesn't move. But just as importantly, it will not over pinch the lagging and take it out of its natural shape and deform it, of which if you do so, you will not get the seamless joints. So to carry out a T-piece, the saw starts at the tip, remaining pressure on the faces, taking the saw down with the natural shape of the saw in an arcing fashion. On the centre piece here, on the V cutout again, just go down, pressing against the face. Go very steady on that one so you don't over pinch it, because the slot here, which will be discussed later, is for the soldered elbow 90-degree bend. Flip PipeLagger Pro over, pressure again, and down. There is on the back of the profiler a square edge, and that's intentional for up against clips, up against walls, where it's visually on show. The way in which you execute a really square cut on the back is you do not use a reciprocating action or push downwards. Again, you use the natural shape of the saw in a whipping fashion and quite quickly, like so. Within the top tip section later, I'll show you what happens if you do adopt the wrong technique. So as you can see there, a perfect T-piece arrangement. A 90-degree bend. It's very important as well, and I will go into it in top tips, that the slit needs to be rotated in the profiler in such a way that it's not visually on show. That enhances the overall aesthetics. Putting pressure against the face, gently just kiss the lagging and scar it, and just go all the way down. There you have a very neat 90-degree bend. In order to do a 45-degree soldered elbow, again, saw goes from the very front down to the back. That's your soldered 45. When there's a pipe clip near the radius of a pulled bend, 15, 22 or 28, it's very difficult for the lagging to retain on the pipe. It will just want to naturally whip off. So there is a way of doing a segment bend, as shown, where it does utilise the 22.5 degree slot for the 45. In this instance, you do two 22.5 degree sections. The way in which you do that is you create two reference points on the radius of the bend. Now, due to various pipe benders on the market having variations of radiuses, we aren't able to give definitive measurements at this point. So it's a case of really trial and error, and then making a mental imprint for what your 15 and 22 pipe bender or even your 28 does. To get your centre line points here, it's the point at which the centre line drops off. So if you were to run a line as a reference point up the pipe, and at the point where it then drifts off, that's the little cross to make, and again here, and then that's your measuring point. It may be that you have to plus or minus a few mil to get it right, but once you've got it, it's pretty much there. And the segment bend looks like that once it's complete. For time efficient purposes, in regards to segment bend, I'll just knock one up so you get an idea. Now, bearing in mind at this point you'll have your dimension, and you then hold the tape measure centrally across above the hole. Your mark then for the centre mark will then be the centre of this slot. So if you imagine the centre line running along here, you can look downwards and then see your little mark on the lagging, ensuring that the angle is looking away from you, and it's also then rotated square. And there we have your pulled bend. So thanks for watching the installation tutorial. Cut corners with confidence with PipeLagger Pro.